Good afternoon. My name is Ala McCoy. I am Director of Startup Support Program at the University of Maryland, specifically for faculty and graduate students who are interested in IP, in startups based on the IP that they developed. And so who and why? So this is really for scientists who are very passionate about their research and would like a low-risk opportunity to transform the results of their research into a product or service that can benefit the public. Here at the University of Maryland, we have a wealth of resources for those who are interested in startups, but they're really difficult to navigate because there's so many of them. And so we provide customized path for any startups, but we provide business advice, training, and funding opportunities. Participation in many of these programs are free. However, we do watch for results to make sure that progress is made. And we've really discussed 4 phases of startup building, mirroring the steps of company development. This is a table just at a glance showing various University of Maryland partners and departments, offices and programs, and type of resources that they provide. And we will go into detail on each of them. So in terms of funding is really important for startup building. And we have over 600,000 available for qualified IP-based startups. A lot of these resources have been developed into sort of a startup guide showing you the path. We also have this brochure that you can look at, was beautifully developed. And it will show you each resource and when should you take it, sort of like on a path. So in step one, we're looking for feasibility. Is there a potential for startup? We usually go through customer discovery, market research, figuring out is there a product market fit, and figuring out what is the minimum viable product design would look like, what's the business model, and would this actually work? And the result should be yes or no on a startup. Should you do this before you even start the company? And so here's how to do this. So first and foremost, if you haven't done that yet, you should submit intellectual property disclosure to UM Ventures, and there's the link. University of Maryland, UM Ventures will assess your technology, and by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be an invention. It can be copyrighted material. And so they will assess. They have trained professionals who are well versed in these questions. They will assess, and they will develop an appropriate IP protection plan, and will necessitate any necessary IP filings, such as patent filings, copyright registrations, and such. So to do that, please go to this URL listed here, and there is a lot more information. A lot of times people have questions, and either myself or somebody from UM Ventures will be very happy to answer those questions. Once you've disclosed your intellectual property, the next best step to do would be to sign up for a regional I-Corps program. I-Corps program was developed by the NSF. It's a real world hands-on training to show how to incorporate innovations into successful products to solve societal problems. This is an opportunity for you to investigate who actually needs your innovation, how can it be used in real world. Big focus on customer discovery, and you will be taught how to do that. Next cohort will be gathering in January 2022. Once you complete regional University of Maryland I-Corps, which is a 2-week program, you will qualify for the national I-Corps program, which comes with $50,000 of funding, where you will be able to spend 7 weeks doing customer discovery. Please visit I-Corps.umd.edu for more information on how to sign up. And they also have info sessions, I believe, every month. So you could sign up for the next info session to find out more. We have 3 entrepreneurs in residence who are all successful cashed out entrepreneurs. You can see the companies that they've started. They have a wealth of experience, and they are available at no cost to you to provide you advice on anything from here is my invention. How do you think, what type of product or service do you think I could make out of it? What do you think this could do? Who needs this? And anywhere to how do I form my company? How do I register my company? How do I deal with investors? How do I deal with employees? Any type of questions that you would have, these experienced entrepreneurs in residence are available weekly at no cost to you. You can go to this URL listed here to sign up for a 1-hour session. And we are in the process of transitioning to a people grow platform where the sign up will be easier. But before that happens, you can please select a time and date that works for you and connect with them over Zoom. Or if it is mutually acceptable, you may be able to meet with them in person. I highly recommend that you utilize this service because these are all fantastic individuals to talk to. We also offer a series of business fundamentals for scientists workshop, such as this one. These are hands-on workshops that specifically developed for University of Maryland scientists, faculty, graduate students. They teach business concepts and skills, startup resources such as this one, legal issues, and many other practical know-how. We invite accountants, lawyers, entrepreneurs, industry experts to come and discuss how do you build a successful business. And these are free. Most of them are going to be offered either in virtual only format. Some of them may be offered in a hybrid format where up to 6 people will be allowed to come in person and sit here in the conference room socially distanced. Most of them, though, will probably be virtual, so you will be able to sign up by Zoom. And since we're doing these over Zoom, we're able to record them, and all of the recordings that we've done since we started doing this over Zoom are now posted on our YouTube channel called Startup.UMD, and I posted a link to that startup channel, so you can subscribe or you can just visit and see if there's a particular topic that you're interested in watching. If you go to go.umd.edu/workshops2021, you will be able to see a schedule for the upcoming, usually a month ahead. Some of the workshops have already been scheduled for future months. That schedule is constantly being updated, so please come back often and sign up for anything that interests you. So that was educational. Let's talk about funding. So we offer access to an excellent funding program through TEDCO. It's called TEDCO Maryland Innovation Initiative, or MII program. It comes in 2 phases. Phase 1 is before you actually form a startup. It's called Technology Validation Phase Grant. And this is really unique, and a fantastic opportunity for any PhD student, graduate students, or faculty to get very early startup funding without actually having to go outside and do it as a startup. You will be doing it as a researcher at the University of Maryland. You can use University of Maryland equipment. You can hire University of Maryland students for this. So this is very unique and very valuable. So phase one is called technology validation phase. It's $115,000 that goes to your lab, and there is no overhead. So there's nothing that goes to Aura over that. The entire amount goes to you. $15,000 of that is dedicated to hiring a commercialization consultant to write a business plan for you. Once this project is over, how are you going to start the company? $10,000 will go to cover patent expenses, if there are any, so that the startup company is not responsible for those down the road. And then $90,000 can be spent on PI salaries, postdoc salaries, student salaries. You can also hire outside consultants or outside engineers, any type of outside people can be hired. You can purchase equipment, materials, and such. So anything that would go toward technology validation project that would show that yes, this technology works. You can use that money for this project. It's a 9-month project. And here are metrics from the past years. So you can see we have, it's a fairly high success rate, certainly much higher than an SBIR and SCTR. A lot of your colleagues have accessed this quite successfully in the past. So to apply for this grant, it's very different from any other grant that you've written, in such that most of your application will be focused on the business side of things, on the business case, and not on the technology itself. So this is not a peer-reviewed project where you will be presenting to somebody who really understands your technology. You will be presenting, you will be making a case to industry people, will be evaluating business case. And to help you create that, because it's so different, we have site miners. Site miners are industry experts whose job is to help you craft the application. And then their job is to defend your application at TEDCO. So you will not be presenting it to reviewers. Your site miners will be defending it in front of the reviewers. And they understand really well how the application should be written, what type of questions reviewers usually ask, what type of questions, what type of reaction they would have. And so they will really help you shape your application in a way that is positioned for success. And then we'll defend your application. So if you are interested in MII program, please let me know. And obviously, you first need to submit your disclosure. You need to have any necessary IP filings. And I can introduce you, I will assign a site miner to you, and you can begin working on your application. If you'd like to learn more, there is a video on our YouTube channel, and here's the link, short-term go.umd.edu/about-MII. And there's a video that site miners recording going into details about this program. But again, I think this is a fantastic, very early stage funding program, especially if you're a postdoc or graduate student. You can do this with the comfort of having your University of Maryland salary and benefits, and at the same time building a company. By the way, if I'm moving too fast, or if you have any questions, please submit them via the Q&A function, and I will try to address them either as they come in or at the end. So please do submit questions or comments via chat. So again, to recoup, so after the step one, you would have an understanding whether there is a product market fit. What is your product? First of all, it's really hard to define sometimes. Who are your customers? How are you going to reach them? And will this work financially or not? And then you would move to step two, where you would actually form your startup, license intellectual property from the University of Maryland, and find space for your startup if you need it, of course, because now we found out a lot of startups found out that they don't actually need as much space as they thought they did. So the goals of step two, again, incorporated company, licensed IP, funding strategy, active fundraising efforts. MVP stands for minimum viable product. So MVP development. And hopefully, depending on what type of company you're building, what industry you're in, hopefully you would start lighting up your first users or customers. So how would you do that? So first you would start with securing intellectual property license from the university. And good news is that the University of Maryland offers express license terms to startups that are very friendly to startups. You could use that, or you could negotiate different terms if you wish to do so. So you would work with your Ventures innovation manager to secure that license into your startup. Just a word of caution that University of Maryland name and logo cannot be used without a separate permission and license from University of Maryland Office of Trademarks and Licensing, which is separate from Ventures. So if you would like to use name or logo, you would need a license for that as well. This is also where you could apply for the next phase of MII funding, TEDCO MII. It's called company formation. It's $150,000 that goes directly to the company. However, it is not a grant. It is not a grant, it's a convertible debt note at 8% interest. And we can discuss that if you have questions about that. Let me have some questions. I will address those questions at the end. So, so company formation, even though it's not a grant, it is a convertible debt note. It's still very early stage funding, which is really, really difficult to get. So it's still, and it's a very good deal. We can talk about what the terms mean, or you can think about that later. But again, it's $150,000 that's available to you to form your startup and get going. We have also, very recently, you may have heard, we have launched Quantum Startup Foundry at the University of Maryland. Obviously, this is for quantum startups, and they offer things such as SBIR and SCTR grant assistance. They have a program to connect companies with large government contractors for technology validation and customers. They have, or they're building a network of quantum educated investors, so investors who understand quantum space. They also offer startup space. If you are interested in learning more, you can contact Piotr Kujakovic. Another thing that I would like to mention, it's not a very exciting thing, but you need to know that if you are a University of Maryland faculty, staff, PhD student, you should think about potential conflict of interest. So under the University of Maryland policy, there are multiple policies that govern this conflict of interest. It's a situation in which a member of the university community is in a position to gain personal benefit or financial advantage arising from the university position, either through outside professional activities, or through their actions or decisions at the university. And that includes startups. So starting a company could potentially have some conflicts of interest, and to make sure that you're not in violation of conflicts of interest policies, and also state ethics laws, because as University of Maryland employees, we are state of Maryland employees and we must abide by state ethics laws. So the best way to protect yourself, to make sure that you're not in violation, is to submit COI disclosure. It is required for all faculty and staff who are starting companies or engaging in other outside professional activities. And COI committee meets and they will review and develop management plan if needed. Often conflicts could arise from to make sure that students are protected. So for example, you are not allowed to supervise students at the university and at the company. And there are ways to manage that. So it is important to learn about this and to work with the COI committee, who is very accommodating, and they will explain everything to you, what constitutes a COI and such. So if you visit the research.umd.edu/COI, you can learn more about that. And we also have a conflict of interest, managing conflict of interest workshop on our YouTube channel, and you can watch that as well. So what's next? So let me see, there's another question that we have. So somebody's asking, I was a UMD employee last year and started a company within a year. Is my company eligible for any of this funding? So the answer is, it could be if your company is based on any of the University of Maryland intellectual property. So if you license any of the University of Maryland intellectual property, then you can apply for this funding. There are other funding opportunities I will talk about, for which you don't necessarily have to use University of Maryland IP. I answer that question. So startup space. So you started a company. Some companies don't need space, or you may need that. You may not need it right away. But for those who do need it, obviously you need lab space and such. So a word of caution, faculty members cannot use their own labs for startups. As soon as you start a company, the company becomes an outside entity, and think about it. Any outside entity wouldn't be able to just come into your lab and use your equipment and materials and such for their own use. So a company is a different non-university entity and needs to go through, it needs to have permission, some sort of permission to use the space. So MTech Ventures here on campus has a building, technology advancement program, and it's a dedicated space specifically for startups. That is your best venue to get startup space. They have both wet labs with fume hoods, and they also have office spaces, and they also have just desks. So if you're interested, MTech Ventures is it is the best place on campus to get space. They also work with, this is the only space on campus where ESSR will remove hazardous waste for outside companies. If you lease another space on campus, another lab on campus, you would need to have your own hazardous removal company come and take care of your waste. So MTech Ventures is dedicated space for startups. Again, I would go that route. Other spaces may be leased short term. Usually that's not an easy process because this is a state property. There are bond issues. Some buildings are not leasable at all. Some are, but it's really difficult to navigate that, but it is possible to do. So to lease your space either at Tech Ventures or anywhere else on campus, you would submit facility use application. It used to be a very clunky process whereby you would need to have a physical paper that you would need to get 13 signatures on it. It often took over a year to do that. However, recently there was a online application developed where it's very easy to submit your materials, everything's in one place. You can see the progress where your application is, and it's a fairly easy process. However, you would need to do that, and you would need to have your conflict of interest letter either saying you don't have any conflicts of interest or that you have a management plan before you submit this facility use application. Once your facility use application is approved, then you would obtain facility use license with the University of Maryland attorney. And then you will be able to move into your space. So that's the process to, if you wish to use University of Maryland space. There are other spaces available through Discovery District. So Discovery District, you probably all have seen the hotel and some of the other spaces across Baltimore Washington Boulevard. It's a 150-acre research park adjacent to University of Maryland. There is WeWork, if you haven't seen it. I'm actually seated right in front of it, catty corner from us. So WeWork is a private company that lease space from the University of Maryland, and they offer anything from hot desks to dedicated offices. There are also opportunities to rent or lease dedicated space specific to your startup. So if you have any questions or have any needs, please contact Sammy Poppet, our campus connector, and Sammy is also Discovery District Manager, whose email is listed here. So additional tools and resources this stage. We also assist teams to find CEOs of business partner search. As a university, we wouldn't want our researchers, our faculty to quit your researcher jobs. And we will assist you in finding a business partner so you can continue being researcher and somebody else can help you run the actual business. Again, we have entrepreneurs in residence. Please use them as your mentors. We also offer help with introductions and educating about angel investors and venture capitalists. We have an very active angel investor group here on campus, and when you are ready, we can invite several faculty members to watch some of those presentations. We also work with business school professors to put some of our early stage startups into MBA classes where students work either as consultants or as teams developing strategy, looking at doing market research and such for your startup. And that's been going great. So the question is, does UM Ventures help startups navigate the process, like something like facility use applications and guide through COI disclosures? And absolutely, yes. That's my job. This is what I do. I offer a lot of assistance. If you would like to have a separate one-on-one meeting, figuring out what you need to do, I'm happy to meet with you and guide you through the process. So again, this is step 2. You've incorporated your company, licensed IP. You're working on your funding strategy, trying to get more money. And MVP, there was a questions in the Q&A. MVP stands for minimum viable product, which means what is the minimum what is the minimum development that you would need to do to your product where it doesn't necessarily have all the bells and whistles, it doesn't look beautiful, but you would actually be able to sell it and say this is your product. So first in stage one, you try to figure out what it would look like, what is the design, and then in this stage, you would actually start development. That answers the question. So stage 3, this is where your startup is formed, your management team is in place, and your focus is on product and service launch and customer acquisition, and hopefully early revenues. See. And here is the next opportunity to get additional funding to your startup. And for this one, you don't necessarily have to have a University of Maryland IP. It can be any intellectual property, can be personally owned, or it can be owned by the company and such. So it's called MIPs, or Maryland Industrial Partnerships. It's a very effective R&D funding. So the company puts in $10,000, University of Maryland puts in $90,000, and the entire amount would go to a University of Maryland lab to do an R&D project for you. And there's no overhead, so the lab will have a $100,000 budget to do that. It can be 1 or 2 years, so it can be extended for an additional year for additional $100K. It could be used either for research and development or education and training. So you could, for example, develop an industrial training program for employees. If you're interested, there's a website and contact information for Ronnie. You can email him or call him and find out more. But again, this is a very effective R&D, very cost-effective R&D program for companies. The only thing here is that the company has to be located in the state of Maryland. But other than that, you don't need to have any ties to university. And then Maryland Momentum Fund. So it's a $10 million university system fund. They make equity investments of up to $500,000. They do not lead investments, so you would need to have somebody who is willing to invest, and they would match that investment up to $500,000. To qualify for this, you need to have a startup, and you need to be either University System of Maryland, student, alum, faculty, or it needs to be IP based. If you're interested in learning more, there's their website, or you can also contact Leopold Johnson at the email listed here. She's the managing director. Again, some of the other tools and resources at this stage, Discovery District, many companies eventually outgrow either WeWork or MTech space and need bigger spaces. And so Sammy Poppet will be happy to work with you to find something here in College Park. We love when that companies stay here in College Park. Our entrepreneurs and residents are available, and industry experts as well. We help you navigate and find investors and help with VC pitch coaching, and help you find team members for your company if you need that. And step 4, this is really where the company is grown-up company, and the focus is really on showing healthy revenue growth. This is where you would you could use the R&D program such as MIPS, Momentum Fund, and many other things. So again, we can help. We would love to keep you here in College Park if we can. At this stage, we also ask companies to give back and come and do workshops for earlier companies, and some of them have done that and talked about how to build successful companies and lessons learned. And here are some of the success stories. So I've been talking about all the resources and what do we have to show for that? Well, you may have heard that One of our startups, INQ, recently announced a $2 billion IPO, which is very exciting for everybody. INQ is a quantum computing company, and they're located right here in College Park. So this has been a huge success, and we're very proud of that, and hope for more stories like that. Another success stories is MIPs. You can buy the product that stops bleeding, sort of like Neosporin, but it also stops bleeding. They recently launched it on Amazon.com. You can also buy it in select CVS pharmacies. They also have another product that is cleared by the FDA for use to rapidly and decisively stop bleeding. And MIPs will also be doing a live workshop. I believe it's September 29th, and I can provide you with more information if you're interested. Here's another success story, N5 Sensors. They develop sensors that can detect various gases and pollutants in the air, and they have multi-million-dollar contracts with government and government contractors. Here are some of the other success stories you may have heard of, just to show the variety of different companies that are built. So Blue Lean is a skincare company. They sell anti-aging skincare line products. Emma Fire sells clean burning stoves for your home. Airagility is a drone company, and Grid Boost sells anything from a gel that you can apply to your athletic glove to restore stickiness, or you can also buy gloves and many other products. So all of these are revenue generating companies with real products and services that originated here at the university. They've used MII funding. They've worked and still do many still do with our entrepreneurs and residents, and have used a lot of the programs that I've discussed. So what should you do next? Your next steps. So first, submit IP disclosure if you haven't done that. Sign up for the next UMD I-Corps. Sign up to meet with an entrepreneur in residence. As I mentioned, it's a simple sign up sheet for now, but we will be moving to People Growth platform that will be a little bit more easier to use soon. Sign up for more workshops, check that URL frequently because we add more as we speak. And if you're interested in watching some of our past workshops, there's a big library on YouTube, and I provided URLs to all of those resources, and all of them are shortened URLs so that they would be easier to find. Again, my name is Ala McCoy, and I'm happy to answer any questions and set up phone calls or Zoom meetings or in-person meetings if you wish to go over your specific case. I am working at the Diamondback Garage. I'm right here right now. We are in the back of the hotel, and I'm here in person about 4 days a week. So happy to meet in person, happy to do Zoom or phone calls. And right now, we can take some questions. So that question. Here's another question. Perhaps you will get to this later, but how much of this is applicable for faculty startups whose idea is more service oriented based on their technical skills using already available technologies? So to answer your question, you can use a subset of the resources for this. For example, a lot of our so for example, you can still work with our entrepreneurs in residence and ask them how to start and run your company. So they're available for advice. A lot of the funding programs such as MII, for example, they are more for technology validation. So if you don't have technology, that would be hard. You can still do regional I-Corps, where you will be able to do customer discovery to see who needs your services. However, NSF for the big I-Corps, for the national I-Corps, they were allowing such teams as well. However, recently they switched to technology-based teams only. So you would be able to do UMD I-Corps, but not national. So again, for a startup like that, please talk to our entrepreneurs in residence, or EIRs, what we call workshops. You may or may not be able to qualify for MII funding, depending on, again, for MII, you would really need to have some sort of intellectual property, which, it may not necessarily be technology, but if it's, for example, a curriculum that you developed at the University of Maryland, or training, or some sort of copyrighted material that qualifies as intellectual property, you could potentially do that as well. So it depends. And if you have any more questions, please reach out, and I'm happy to talk to you more. Right, I think we have another 15 minutes. Does anybody have any other questions? And at this time, because we are at the end of my presentation, you can also raise your hand and ask your, I can unmute your microphone and you can ask your question live. I don't see any questions. Another thing I wanted to mention, that if you are a student, graduate student, PhD student, undergraduate student, we also have fantastic resources specifically for students. I would definitely recommend that you look into Dingman Center for Entrepreneurship and Do Good Accelerator. So those two are really fantastic programs for students, and may offer additional funding, such as competitions and additional access to mentors. So do look into that if you're a student. I will follow up with slides. I will send slides to everybody, and the video of this workshop will be posted on our Startup.UMD YouTube channel. So again, thank you so much. And if we don't have any more questions, I'll give it another minute. And if we don't have any more questions, thank you so much for coming and listening. If you can't think of questions now, but you think of something later, please send me an email and we can set up a time to talk. Thank you so much.